When I was a kid, my Uncle Jim would leave tickets at will call for me and my brother to watch the boxing card at the Olympic Auditorium in downtown Los Angeles. It was the mid-1970s. The arena was then 50 years old. It smelled of sweat and popcorn and spilled beer. Going back home to our house in Venice after, with blood on my shirt from the fights, sick from eating too many hot dogs, tired from being up too late. Oh man, some of the best memories of my life. I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan, one that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Hello, sports historians. Hope everyone is staying safe. These are challenging times, but we all together will overcome and move forward. Welcome to a video audio podcast episode 28 of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. I've talked about my Uncle Jim in previous episodes, but to clarify for those of you new to the show, that uncle of mine was Jimmy Lennon Sr. Jimmy Lennon, who lived from 1913 to 1992, was many things, most notably a famous boxing and wrestling announcer, one that not only called fights in the ring, but also made multiple television and movie appearances as a ring announcer. His son, Jimmy Lennon Jr., does not only carry on the tradition, he takes the art to new heights. Known around the world, Jimmy Jr., or Jamie as I know him, has most recently called the Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder fight that went off this past February. But before I go much further, let me introduce the producer of today's show, the director of the Facebook Live at 5 slate of shows, the all-time assists and digs leader at New Mexico State, my quarantine partner for life, my wife, Christine. Jimbo.
Hi, everybody. I'm just here to tell you that we now have shows on all 5 weekdays. So you've got plenty of coverage to watch during your quarantine time. So please follow us on Facebook at Sports Stories Podcast. Like our posts on Facebook and Instagram. Rate us. Subscribe. We need your support to keep going and keep having some fun doing this.
Those of you that know me know I prefer my acronyms. SSDL always refers to Sports Stories with Denny Lennon, and FBL5 is Facebook Live at 5. So on Mondays, we do long-form interviews that generally are with authors, filmmakers, and the like. Tuesdays is a round table that discusses the legendary Venice Backyard Championships, an iconic volleyball tournament that ran from 1983 to 1995 in the backyards of Venice. We did our first one last night. Got a little off the tracks. Wednesday, we put the spotlight on high school athletes all the way up to Olympic athletes. Thursdays are these video podcasts, which were recorded prior to the coronavirus outbreak. And Friday is our happy hour Let It Fly show with a potpourri of guests. Jimmy Lennon Jr. has been at the center of the ring for some of the moments we all remember. Buster Douglas over Mike Tyson, Julio Cesar Chavez fighting in front of 135,000 people in Mexico City, Mike Tyson chomping on the ear of Evander Holyfield, Tupac attending a Tyson fight and later being gunned down in Las Vegas. Jamie, I can call him that since he's my cousin, was nice enough to come to the home studio garage, take the 74-28 shot on the backyard hoop, and then sit down for a 2-hour interview that we broke into 4 parts. In this first part, we talk about his legendary father, in particular, my Uncle Jim's encounter with the motion picture Rocky movie director John Avildsen, Jamie's younger years, and how both father and son used their well-honed announcing skills at the legendary volleyball tournament that was the Venice Backyard Championships. So, without further ado, in this corner of the 74-28 studio, checking in at a fit and ready 155 pounds, hailing from Santa Monica, California, please welcome the internationally renowned Hall of Fame boxing announcer, Jimmy Lennon Jr. Please note, this interview was recorded on January 28th, 2020.
I'm ready.
Ooh, back.
Okay. Yeah! eating a bowl he feels good.
So grab those. And put a water there for you.
Thank you.
Want to make sure we're up
I will.
and going.
What a nice stand.
You know, they're really nice to me. The Craig Impleman that you saw interviewed, he and then Lynn Guerin, who does a John R. Wooden course, they got together and they control most of Wooden's archives. And so I've known parts of them for years and so forth, but they sat down and they just believed in what I was doing and said I had access to all the archives however I wanted to use them.
Isn't that nice?
And those archives are fantastic. You can do this word search on the backside of the either Wooden's Wisdom or John R. Wooden, and so you just search adversity and everything he did in interviews, videos, whatever it might be, that'll all come up. And so we've been able to incorporate that into, our opens and stuff. And
I got to tell you something. So John Wooden invited my dad to a football game, a Rams game.
oh wow,
Yes. And so my dad invited me to come along. So I went along with him. And it was just unbelievable. And I'm sitting, next to John Wooden in the car, next to him in the game. We're talking about, his early basketball career, just chatting. And sure, I had respect for him, but, I didn't have the appropriate respect. Well,
Yeah.
and I'm a, young teenager.
Yeah.
And I'm going to I think it was Lincoln Junior High at the time. And so I said to my buddy, I know John Wooden, and I know where he lives. And so I brought and he said, no, you didn't. I said, yes, I do. So I brought him over to his apartment,
Wait,
and I knocked on his door, and he answered. And I realized at that point, this was really inappropriate what I was doing. And,
Right.
and so I kind of said hi, and,
Did he remember?
nice to see you.
Did he remember you?
Yeah, well, I introduced myself as Jimmy Lennon.
And he goes, oh, sure, son, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he was nice, but it was so inappropriate. I expected him to invite me in for tea or something.
We
I
treated
don't know.
him like one of our uncles. Like, hey, yeah, like we rolled right up. I was doing this promoting a big volleyball tournament in the blacktop of St. Mark's School, and I wanted him to be our guest of honor. And I don't know how I got a hold of his phone number, but I did. And this is late in his life, and so I called, and I expected somebody to pick up, and then I was going to go through my thing, and he picked up. Hello. I panicked, and I hung up.
Oh, you're kidding.
I did. I just panicked. Like, I never panic at that stuff. I really don't care. But I said, wow. And then I called back and said, Coach, I'm sorry. That was me that hung up. And then I explained. He said, oh, that's very nice of you, but it's my birthday this weekend, so I'll be here with my
Busy.
family. Yeah.
It's
He's such a
funny.
nice guy.
Yeah, I think I panicked too, but certainly one
the
of
best.
the men that I most respect.
A little bit higher.
Yes. And for me, a lot of times he kind of fit in with the uncles because, growing up like you and I did, we had such respect for it starts with Uncle Jack and works its way down. And you had such respect for the uncles in our family that I always looked at him and was like, man, like he's kind of like them, but
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, I was kicking around and I'll try to remember to call you Jimmy Jr. or Jimmy. But
Call me anything you like.
For me, Jamie is
Sure.
is how we grew up, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was like, man, I wonder where Jamie and I would have first met. Like, it might have been at like Uncle Mox's Easter egg hunt, or we're just little kids doing this
Or a
thing.
Christmas party. I don't know. Yeah.
So, but that's where I first remember you from is Christmas parties because me coming in and being clearly intimidated by how good musically the family was. So Lennon brothers would get up and do something, and the Lennon sisters, and then the older cousins would do like Crosby, Stills, and Nash stuff, and then Vanis could do this. And then you would get up, and I remember you could play classical piano like no man alive. And I used to be so impressed. I would be like, whoa, he can hang with these people. I was like, go, Jamie. And it gave me a whole appreciation, for classical music by hearing what you did. And wow, how long did you study that for?
Not very long. I kind of took it up quickly and faded out. So when it came to our Christmas parties, I had one or two songs in my repertoire, and that was it. The same
Did you walk
thing
off?
every year. Yeah.
Oh,
But I
wow.
appreciate you saying that because, for me, those Christmas parties, I was so intimidated by everyone else, and I was just, enjoying it, loving it, but I can't believe the talent that I'm seeing. And every year it seemed like someone new who I hardly knew would come up and blow us all away.
What, didn't it though?
It was amazing. And no, I'm with you. I'm a little bit intimidated by the talent in the family. Very proud of it, but it's like, wow, these guys are good.
I don't know. There was two, maybe Christmas says that myself, Tommy Blazer, was another cousin, and somebody else had to get up and represent the non-musically talented Lennons and sing a Christmas carol, just so that others could go,
Yep.
So really, you think they're family, do you?
Yep.
Yeah. So born in 1958.
Yes.
You, I'll give you your first quiz question.
Oh.
Who was the heavyweight champ then?
Ooh, I don't know. Let's see, 58.
You like that?
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's
out,
pretty,
right out, Jamie.
That's pretty good. You should have told me. I should have prepped on this. Okay. Well, let's see. It wasn't Sonny Liston. It would be before Sonny Liston. Jersey Joe Walcott.
Good try. He's right in there. Floyd Patterson.
Floyd Patterson. Okay.
Yep,
Of course.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
He was. I only knew of him because I was always so interested in the Olympics, and so I'd always study back on whoever won in the Olympics to kind of. And I was always fascinated with him because I think he won in Helsinki as like a middleweight or something, and then Cassius Clay, who of course became Muhammad Ali, had won in Rome, and I was always impressed. I don't know why I was always so impressed. Like I felt like that was almost more prestigious than winning the heavyweight title was winning a gold medal.
Yeah, and a lot of fighters say that. They say, there's nothing like winning the gold medal. They have that as a young kid, the chance to travel internationally and beat all the best in the world at the time. So, it is the pinnacle for many.
Now, you just mentioned Lincoln Middle. Where did you go to elementary school?
So I went to Madison Elementary School in Santa Monica. Then we moved, and I went to Franklin Elementary, Lincoln Junior High, Samuel High, UCLA.
Okay. And do you remember, did you play sports at all, or did you have, any buddy like outside of the family that kind of influenced your love of sports?
I think like much of our family, I grew up just watching sports, loving it, playing it with my buddies. I was pretty small in junior and senior high school, and I remember playing basketball like one-on-one with some on the basketball team, and I couldn't make it, but I could beat them, but I was not good, real good enough to I don't think make a team, but I love sports always. Every week, play throw baseballs back and forth, footballs, get together on some 4-on-4 football in the fields, and of course, and volleyball. Love volleyball.
Our family was so fun to grow up in because you had this built-in set of cousins, so you always could get a game going. But when we talk about I want to talk about Uncle Jim, your father, my Uncle Jim, a little bit, because one of my great memories is the big fights would come up, Hagler Hearns, something like that, and we go over to Uncle Ted's house, and we go down in that den, and there would be 50 people down in that den, and Uncle Ted would go, now quiet, if I got to tell you a second time, I'm going to ask you to go outside, I want to hear the announcers, the whole thing. He'd lay down the law, but then Uncle Jim would come out, and inevitably I'd be like, yes, Uncle Jim. We were so proud. I was like, Uncle Jim right in the middle, holding down,
Well, I got to say, I have distinct memories of that, too. And sometimes he was announcing, and sometimes he wasn't announcing, but it was the den at Uncle Ted's place. And to this day, when there's a really big fight, I think of my family in the den watching the fights, or family wherever they are, and I honestly do. There's nothing, people can say, oh, you did great and everything. There might be millions, tens of millions of people watching, but I really do think of my family, and I think back of me sitting in that den watching, never imagining that I'd be there and family could be watching me. And I think one of the last fights, I think it was Mayweather-Pacquiao, I'm like texting. There's like a group text with family members about what's going on the week of.
Yeah,
and the
Kevin
time
had that going.
Yeah, Kevin had that going. So, to me, getting that acceptance from the family means more than anything.
Doesn't it, though?
It really does.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you a commercial from our sponsor, Casablanca.
Casablanca Restaurant in Venice, California, proud sponsor of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon, also sponsoring the Facebook Live at 5 Friday show.
Margaritas.
That's right. Carlos is kind enough at Casablanca to package up like a to-go, what they're selling, right? To-go. What is in it? It's like that taco
It's
bar?
daily deal. He does basically a taco bar with 2 different meats, beans, rice, tortillas. It's fantastic.
Brilliant. And then you throw in the margaritas with that. And if you watch our Friday show, you'll see that we cheers one another. He sends one over to Venice, where Marley and the Rices are hosting part of the show, over here to the 7428 studio.
And
where
any
we do
local
it.
guests.
And any local guest. Doug O'Neill.
Benefit as well.
Doug O'Neill, the Triple Crown winner, horse trainer, is a new big fan. So, thank you, Carlos. You can call Carlos at 310-505-5091. Again, 310-505-5091. Call Carlos. Ask him for the sports stories with Denny Lennon special. He's going to throw in margaritas or a big percentage off.
Vámonos a Casablanca, vámonos a Casablanca, vámonos a Casablanca, la comida para la familia. Vámonos a Casablanca, vámonos a Casablanca.
And now back to our interview with Jimmy Lennon Jr.
I'll tell you a story in a bit about your dad watching me announce one time. That was interesting, but I kind of was interested. I know as a youngster, you're going to see your dad at the Olympic, and there was times where he'd float us tickets, and it was always like so fun.
Oh yeah,
to go to the Olympic, and if I came home with a little blood on my shirt, I was like, "Yep, I was right there." My uncle got me these. But did you go often?
Yeah, I did. I went to both wrestling and boxing, and I remember there were times where I went alone with him a couple times. I'd sit down and he'd tell the usher, "Watch out after him. He's my son," and that's where I'd be. I remember I was 6 years old. I had my birthday party up in the booth above where the Richmond 95171 was, and I had my little buddies there, and that was my birthday party, inviting them to the wrestling.
Oh wow!
And so yeah, I have sometimes he would befriend wrestlers, and especially I think the wrestlers were almost more open, more friendly, kind of family oriented, and so getting to know some of them. But yeah, going to the fights, and as I got older, meant more and more to me as I love the sport of boxing so much. So
your Uncle Jim would always maintain the veneer about wrestling, like as if it weren't as if it weren't prearranged. He'd always say, and he would just move right on.
Oh, it was the big secret he would never let on. Although there was one time that he hinted it to me because I was there and he was going to get jumped by one of the wrestlers. And he said, "You might see something, but I'm going to be okay. Don't worry."
Oh, that's great.
And that was the extent of...
Did that happen?
Oh, yeah, and it happened, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's great.
Somehow the wrestler went wild and went crazy afterwards and
That's
attacked
hilarious.
everybody, including my dad.
Oh, that's so good. I bet you saw some fun things at the Olympic. I know I got a little bit of an education going there.
Oh, yeah. I've been to a number of riots there. I remember one time, and I had just announced, I was a young announcer, but I remember the police coming in and the tear gas, because I could see row after row people starting to sneeze and choke, and it was coming towards me, and I just went the other way, and I'd see guys hitting each other, and then they'd stop and they'd see me, "Oh, Jimmy," and then they'd go back to whatever fight. So I didn't feel in danger, but it was an experience, that's for sure. I also remember one of the things I just loved is there was a metal ramp where you could get from one tier, and instead of walking around, you could walk down this kind of metal ramp.
Okay.
But it would get slippery. And so the fans would kind of watch when someone's coming down with a couple of beers in their hands, and the person would take the shortcut and slip on the ramp, and the beers, and the whole crowd would cheer, and then wait for the next person
like a
to
broken
do
plate
it.
in a restaurant. Oh, that's great.
And it was like the regulars knew that a fall was going to happen.
I think I share an affection for one of the early boxers that always got my attention, which was Danny Red Lopez. And I don't know, did he ever win the heavyweight? I mean, he was like a middleweight, lightweight.
He was a featherweight, and he absolutely won the featherweight world title.
He did.
Yeah, he had
your dad seemed to love him.
Yeah, no question. And I I've seen him not too long ago.
Oh, wow.
And he and his wife, super nice people. And one of my favorites also, because he was the kind of fighter, if he got hit and knocked down, watch out, because he'd get up and knock you out. And he was a great fighter.
Those are
Loved him.
some great names back there. Who else, did you remember when, as a boy, who you used to like as a fighter?
I did like Danny Little Red Lopez and his brother Ernie Lopez, Big Red. And, there was Monroe, I think it was Monroe Brooks, and, a lot of the fighters, Hispanic fighters were ones,
They were.
Mondo Ramos and Chungo Carmona, whether they're U.S. or internationally born. Those are some of my heroes growing up.
So we talked a little bit, about your father. So my Uncle Jim, he was born in 1913.
Yes.
Right? Died in 1992. But some of there's legend and perhaps mythology that the rest of us all either, buy into. And so I want to see a few things. So on the side of innovation, was he either the first or the one that popularized wearing a tuxedo in the ring?
Yeah, and I've heard that too. I don't know of a way to verify that or not, but that's what he said, for so many years. Not necessarily letting the facts get in the way of a good
That's
PR
right.
opportunity. But, we go along with that. I think it's true, and I have read it.
Okay.
But I don't know how to verify that. But he certainly did bring, I think, the level of class up. That it's not just someone maybe with a cigar on the side of the mouth and just
Barking. Something
barking and
not
yelling.
worrying about. So the pronunciation of the name.
Pronunciation of the name, the dress, the attire, would wear the tuxedo, and he came with a lot of class into the ring.
Also, I understand he was the one who started to use the bell to introduce celebrities around the exterior. And I don't know if that's true or not. And especially you're in Los Angeles. So you got plenty of celebrities. If not other fighters to go, and he would go ding ding. I read some old article where the New York Mirror sports columnist said, "I've never seen a ring announcer that controls the bell like that."
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? You're telling me something that I'm really not aware of.
Wow.
And he never said do this.
Oh.
But I tell you, I rely on the bell so much. Almost every fight, I go talk to the timekeeper and I say, look out for me. I'm going to point to you. And I rely on it. To me, it's an important part of the fight. The whole atmosphere, the sound, cool. and the vision. The bell is a big part of it.
That's so cool. Now, what would you consider Uncle Jim's biggest fights? I remember the Hagler Hearns and those eras, and I'm trying to remember him from any of the big heavyweight fights. But what would you tag as perhaps
now,
his
he
highest
didn't do
profile?
Hagler versus Hearns, but he did a number of Hearns fights and a number of Hagler fights.
Got it.
So to be honest, there, and so those were all
Concurrent.
big fights. In terms of heavyweights, he did Ali a couple of fights in Ali. They weren't his biggest fights, and I know he did. Sonny Liston. He always had a good story about Sonny Liston, introducing him that, well known, a very surly, kind of angry man. And he...
Rightfully so on some levels.
Yes.
It's a great documentary on him that came out recently.
It's very good, very good. And my dad, like always, would go talk to the fighters beforehand to make sure how to announce them. And he went into his dressing room and said, so Sonny Liston, and Sonny stopped him and said, "It's not Sonny, boy, it's... what was his name? Charles, I think."
Oh.
And so my dad actually was a little bit offended because he was, so gruff. And so my dad introduced him in the ring as Charles Liston and never said Sonny Liston for him.
He didn't go with Chuck Liston.
Yeah, no.
I wouldn't push his buttons either. Wow, that's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something. What about now? Uncle Jim took full advantage of being in Los Angeles with the television and movie opportunities. 75 or something
like that. TV and film opportunities, and almost always as an announcer, but I think there were a couple times maybe early as a reporter and so forth he got in some small parts. And my mom, who's 97, still receives some of those residual checks, and they of course dwindle as time goes by, so many are very small, but she gets little love messages from my dad to her.
It's the best, just because I love looking at old TV and old films and stuff. And anytime boxing comes up, then I just go, wait. Like, if the kids are around me, I'm like, I just go, wait, you don't know. Yeah. Like, we're going to see, And I mean, I would imagine like Raging Bull might have been the highest kind of regarded film that he's.
No question about it. And I think it's one of the all-time great films. Sure. It's just an amazing film. And he was on set for 7 days on that, and he was just in kind of one scene, not a big scene at all. And Scorsese wasn't a big knowledgeable boxing person.
That's right.
So it's a really unique film in that way. So he really didn't know, who, he did it his own way. Let's put it that way. And it was an amazing film. My dad was in Rocky III, and there's a story, I don't know if you know this, about the casting director approached him and said, would you be in this film?
For Rocky 1?
Rocky 1.
Okay.
And my dad said, okay, what's the pay? And he says, well, it's scale. It's the lowest amount. And my dad said, no, I don't really think so. I don't work for scale. And the casting director said, please come in, just meet the director, and I think you'll. So my dad agreed. So he goes in to meet the director, who was Avildsen, right?
Okay.
And the director was, at his desk, and he looked up at and the casting director said, so this is the ring announcer, and he looks up, he goes, well, you don't look like a ring announcer. And so my dad took the script and said, you don't look like a director, and he left the script and walked out. And so he was not in Rocky 1, Rocky 2, but apparently Sylvester Stallone himself reached out to him to be in Rocky 3.
3, wow.
Yeah, so what an honor.
Wow, that is an honor. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. I sometimes forget, you got to, there's a different listenership and viewership here. So backing up, the Lennon family came to this area. Our grandfather, who we never knew because he died when our dads were young, he came out here to work for, in effect, MGM, but it was the beginnings of that, and be a promotional guy. So there's this promotional, right? And then from them came 7 boys, girl, 64 first cousins, which you and I are part of that, and then a loose count after that.
Yes.
But that said, there's this promotional gene that seems to run through the family. And so whether it's promoting talent like the Lennon sisters, who did fine, or the band Venice and multiple musical acts, or, what's inherent to the fight game, which is that idea of get the hype up. That's something that you're a direct line to. And it's exciting.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I think of what you do. I think of what Bill Lennon does at Branson. He did an amazing job at Danny too.
Yep.
But I never thought of me in the promotional business. But I guess there's part of it, and it's maybe comes from the genes. It's natural.
No doubt. Well, this is the #1 show on Midfield Avenue for the podcasting.
I know that.
You do that.
It's something to be very proud of, and I think you should have the trophy very soon.
I'm going to show, when we put this together post-production, there's a time. So one of the things, and I brought it up on the podcast before, but we started a backyard volleyball tournament. There's 3 families that lived on this one block in Venice, and eventually we went from just my backyard, which was my parents' house, to 5 backyards, 3 front yards, 1,000 people on the block, blind draw, backyard to backyard. Everywhere had a different thing going on. It was super fun. And originally, your dad would come and announce the king and queen, and then the participants. And the participants would go out into my room, which was separate from the house. It's like a converted garage. And then they'd run out. And they were, I can't tell you how excited they were. They could not believe Jimmy Lennon was going to introduce them, right? And then you followed in line with that, which is great. But one funny story about your dad is he goes, this one time he was in the movie Tough Guys.
Yes. And
so he wanted to make sure he got a plug-in for Tough Guys. And so while the guys are waiting to come out for the championship, he goes, "Now, if I could just have your second, I'm in this movie. It's called Tough Guys, Burt Lancaster." And he goes over Burt Lancaster's, and then and then he starts saying, "Well, now I'm playing myself as a singer." And I'm kind of going, Uncle Jim, like we don't have the lights. It's so funny. But then I got you on a local cable, interviewed you, and you came up and you go, okay, so the promotional gene. One of the things I always did, and I learned this from the backyard, is I would just make up some tagline. So I called it the world's largest backyard volleyball tournament.
It was a great tagline, too.
Okay. And so you come and you said, well, my father used to do the introductions. You're doing this thing. And now I'm proud to be here at the world's largest backyard volleyball tournament. I was like, bam. That's my boy, Jamie. Came right in with it. Sounded super legit. That was so good.
Well, it was, and it was legit.
Wasn't that fun, though?
Amazing. I've never participated in any event more fun than that.
That was so fun.
Oh, it's just amazing. And like you said, you go to the different backyards, and a whole different thing was going on. The whole environment of that is just.
It was so fun.
Oh, it's
and I remember
amazing.
you just take it around with it. You just get the particulars, and then you'd say, weighing in at a combined weight of 340 pounds, because it's two people. Oh, man, it was so good. Now it's time for an installment of As Time Goes By, where we get to know Carlos Haro Jr. of Casablanca Restaurant in Venice 1 minute at a time. Now, let's play it again with Carlos Jr. All right, another question. We're under the St. Mark trivia. Carlos, great school, Catholic school in Venice, anchor of the community. So this year we celebrate the 30th anniversary of your winning the prestigious Athlete of the Year award at St. Mark School in Venice, right?
Right.
Okay. When my wife, then Christine Jimbo, was in 8th grade and you were in 7th grade, who would win in a game of one-on-one basketball?
I'm going to say your wife. that is the correct answer. Your wife would win.
Good. I'm glad because she was coming strong if
she
you
was.
didn't come up with that
Yeah.
answer. Okay. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories, along with thousands of people across the country, also supports the My Stuff Bags Foundation, a nonprofit that provides traumatized children with new belongings and new hope. Learn more at mystuffbags.org. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Marley Rice, edited by Bob McCall, and researched by Teresa Dolan. Additional staff include Christine Jimbo, Jake Downey, Ray Castro, and Buck Magic Lennon.
We like to see Sports Stories on a Thursday night with Denny Lennon. God bless everyone.
Check it out, Buck.